Well, hi friends, pro-life leader Frank Pavone here with my daily diary segment. Boy, this is going to be one of the most fun daily diary segments because I'm going to talk to you about what happened during the inauguration, the March for Life, and the Walk for Life. So we're going to talk about January 18th through January 25th of 2025. What eventful days, what glorious days. So on Saturday the 18th, I began this journey after working early at my desk, as I always do. Sometimes I get up quite early in the morning and do some quiet work, reading and research and just desk work. But I did that early on Saturday morning, and then I was picked up by one of my staff members to go to the Orlando airport. Now, when I got to the airport, before I boarded my plane, which was going to Washington, of course, I called a prominent pro-life researcher, actually, that stays in touch with me, and I had an important conversation with her about pro-life research, about an upcoming leaders meeting, and about the idea of a pro-life university online that we've been talking about for a while. Some of the things I did on my computer, both at the office and also on the plane: prayer card that we are distributing, trip plans for upcoming invitations, our essay contest, draft of our next newsletter, Rachel's Vineyard annual report, the upcoming meeting of pro-life leaders, invitations for future trips, invitations of leaders to our 115 forum, the Jewish outreach that we do, the strategy papers that we are showing to the pro-life leaders, and also the, let's see, what is this? Oh yes, the court case that one of our pastoral associates is involved in because of persecution on election day from those who didn't want to hear the pro-life, pro-Trump message. Landed in Washington, D.C. in the mid-afternoon, and went right away to one of the hotels and met with one of our great Priests for Life supporters. We have so many of you out there. Thank you for your financial help. So we had a nice meeting over lunch with one of our supporters. Then I went over to the other hotel where I was staying, settled in, and did a little bit more work on my computer and connections with my staff on some of those issues I mentioned already, and then was picked up by Uber at the hotel to attend a rather late nighttime event of the America First Policy Institute. Now, this was the first of multiple inauguration-related galas, and all kinds of prominent people were there. At each of these galas that I'm going to mention, you had cabinet members and cabinet appointees of President Trump and governors and senators and representatives and media people. The idea being all of us coming together to both celebrate the victory and to recommit ourselves to the service of America, and all of these people, without exception, strongly pro-life that I spoke to and that I know. So the event was at 9 p.m. over at the Waldorf Astoria there in Washington, D.C., and I was there until just about midnight for this event. Went back to my hotel, went to bed, and then Sunday morning, the 19th, after just doing a little bit of work at my desk relating to an upcoming survey of pro-life leaders, relating to final prayers for the preparations for the National Prayer Service that we lead, our essay contest, and also preparations for the 30th anniversary of the document, The Gospel of Life from St. John Paul II. After doing some of that desk work, I was picked up by Uber on Sunday the 19th, and went to an event with Dr. Alveda King. It was a brunch event for the Frederick Douglass Freedom Alliance, and we had a great time interacting with leaders, listening to speeches, praying together, and thanking God for the great election victory. Right from that brunch, which lasted a couple of hours, we went over to a nearby church, the Greater New Hope Baptist Church, where there was an inauguration prayer service that I helped to lead. We first of all interacted with various leaders there on the sidewalk. I was speaking, for example, with Tim Barton, son of David Barton, who now heads up, Tim now heads up Wall Builders, succeeding his dad in that position, although David is still very, very active. Spoke with him at length and some of the other VIPs. Went into the church again, and just spent a lot of time interacting with folks as they were arriving, including Alvita, did some quick videos for social media. And then the prayer service began. I led the prayer for the unborn and for an end to abortion. Tony Perkins was one of the key organizers, also our friend Pastor Jim Garlow. It was live streamed. I had my team here connect with the live stream and get it out there. And then we spent time after the prayer service interacting with folks. So we were there for a good number of hours. By the time we came out in the mid to late afternoon, it was snowing and it was very cold. And we were also in a portion of the city that was locked down for security reasons. Remember, this was the eve of the inauguration. So I had to walk to my next event. And the next event was an evening reception gala sponsored by Newsmax. So I walked and I got there to the Mellon Auditorium, and then again met many media people, Chris Ruddy, the CEO of Newsmax, Rob Finnerty, Jim McLaughlin, the pollster, many, many other people. Marco Rubio was there, Rudy Giuliani was there, and we had a great time there at the Newsmax Gala, again, several hours of celebration, after which I was ready to get back to my hotel and get a good night's sleep in preparation for Inauguration Day, a day when I got up and did some work there in my hotel, March for Life schedule tweaks, appeal approvals, and Rachel's Vineyard end-of-year report. Now, actually, on Inauguration Day, we couldn't get in to, the plans were changed at the last minute, moving it indoors. Of course, I had a ticket for the inauguration, but most of the people with tickets still couldn't get in because of the last minute change of plans. So I followed it on television and did just lots of communication with the public via social media, commenting on the events that were going on, and also commenting on other people that were there, connecting rather, with other people that were there for the inauguration. But then later on in the day, after having enjoyed the service itself, let me see. Oh yes, I also had to have a Zoom meeting just prior to the inaugural ceremonies, a Zoom meeting with my staff about some upcoming projects. And then, having witnessed the inauguration, we went at night to another special gala sponsored by Ralph Reed and the Faith and Freedom Coalition. And there were key people there, Brian Birch, who's going to be the Vatican ambassador, and Judge Janine was there, Governor Mike Huckabee, now ambassador to Israel, connected with him. And it was a great dinner. It was a dinner event. And I enjoyed that, and then returned back to the hotel later that night. Tuesday the 21st, the activities continued, both following up on the inauguration and also beginning the March for Life, pro-life activities with people gathering in D.C. for that. So what I had that day was some early work at my D.C. office. So what I did was to go from the hotel over to the, we call it our Gospel of Life office. So that's right behind the Supreme Court. And our our full-time Washington, D.C. staff person was there. So I went over to the office and worked there. Lots of work, some of the work dealing with things like legal battles that we are conducting on behalf of the unborn. This means like defending pro-life protesters, defending pro-life laws that are under attack, and so forth. Some prospecting conversations, that is sending out mailings to get new donors. Preparing for a podcast with Fox News, rebranding some of our websites, prolifecentral.org, etc., getting some endorsements from priests, approving some appeals, preparing for our next newsletter, talking about the transition of projects from Life Dynamics and things like that. So I worked with my staff person there in the Washington, D.C. office for the bulk of that day. Had a phone call, I had a broadcast meeting in the afternoon at 2:30. I had a phone call with one of our key fundraising directors. At 3, I went across the street to the Capitol and the Supreme Court to do a social media video. And then in the late afternoon, I was picked up to go to a nearby restaurant where I got together with Marjorie Dannenfelser of Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, John Mize of Americans United for Life, Jeannie Mancini, the outgoing president of March for Life, Jenny Lichter, the incoming president of March for Life, and about a dozen other pro-life leaders. We all had dinner together, and that was great. And we all caught up with one another and had some great conversation. And then I went back to the hotel to get ready for a very big day the next day, Wednesday, January 22nd, a day where I started out the day by checking out of the hotel where I was, going back to our Priests for Life office right behind the Supreme Court, and working once again with our staff person there for a couple of hours early in the morning. I had to deal with getting a couple of opinion pieces out and also approving an email blast. But then our executive director, Janet Morana, flew into Washington, met up with us there, and we had an event, a midday event right there at the Supreme Court. We had a number of other pro-life leaders there and various activists, and it was January 22nd, the actual anniversary of Roe v. Wade. So we had a memorial service, as we do each year, remembering the children killed by Roe v. Wade. Now, even though Roe v. Wade is gone, we treat this day like we treat December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, as we treat 9/11, of course, the terrorist attacks. And we had that prayer service, prayer and praise and preaching. It was really wonderful, singing. And by the time we were finished with that, I had to get back to our office behind the Supreme Court, because I had then several media interviews in a row that I did right there from our Priests for Life office, including with Terry Barber, with his program, and then John Henry Weston of LifeSite News came over to the office. So we had a meeting there and a quick interview, and that was very good. Then I did another interview via Skype with Dan Ball. By this time it was the late afternoon. And then once I got finished with that interview, there was also another priest there. There was a priest there that I had also a meeting with. So we had lunch together, actually, and we met at our Priests for Life office. I also had a phone call with our finance director about some details that had to be settled. So all of that took place in the late afternoon on the 22nd. And then I got an Uber over to the Capitol Hill Club. Beautiful event on the evening of Wednesday the 22nd, namely a gathering with the new members of Congress. Now, I got a chance to chat with Congressman Jim Jordan, greeted Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who showed up there, Congressman Chris Smith, who's been a longtime friend and ally. They and many of the new members of Congress were present for this reception, which was very, very good. And we all encourage them in the work to be done for pro-life in the weeks and months ahead. After that reception and networking with everybody, Senator Ted Cruz, Janet and I had a nice discussion with him, and then we went back to the hotel. The next morning, the next day, very busy day, Thursday the 23rd, we began, I just had one email literally that I had to send out in regard to staff training, but then we were out on the street for the work of the day, starting with the national protest against Planned Parenthood that I lead each year on the day before the March for Life. And we went out there and we had plenty of people gathered on the streets. We had some media there. We had a press conference about defunding Planned Parenthood. Various pro-life leaders joined me. Kristen Hawkins with Students for Life, Reverend Pat Mahoney, and many others. So we were there for a couple of hours there on the street. When that finished, it was from 9 to 11. When that finished at 11, we headed over by Uber to the Westin Hotel, where I spent a couple of hours networking with all the participants there who were arriving for the March for Life, who were taking part in various pro-life conferences that were taking place simultaneously there at the hotel, including one that I spoke at and also Janet Morana spoke at, and that was the Law of Life Summit right there at the Westin, again, greeting all kinds of pro-life leaders who were there, and with our team taking pictures, taking videos, and so forth. Then, as the afternoon progressed, in the mid-afternoon, got into an Uber with some of my staff, and we went up to the National Shrine of the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, largest Catholic church in America, there in D.C. And I went there as I do each year, just prior to this Mass for Life that they have, an all-night vigil. But I go there as the people are first gathering for that and greet everybody because they know me. I sat down with Dr. Lisa Marie Carzon, who wrote the book about Sister Dee Dee, and sat with her for a while as she was signing copies of her book, interacted with the crowds, walked through the basilica, walked down in the basement, met priests and bishops and just pro-life activists from far and wide. Students gave blessing, layman's blessing, of course, prayers together, and it was just a great time. Handed out some of our prayer cards. And then, after greeting people right up until the Mass was about to begin, had to go then to Arlington, Virginia, via Uber. And no, actually, at that point, one of my staff was driving me. And I went there for a meeting with Bishop Strickland and Abby Johnson and Eddie Perez with the Vans for Life. So we had a private dinner meeting first to make some plans. And then we had their gala event. I gave the opening prayer as well as the closing prayer. Abby gave a talk, and I met and interacted with many wonderful pro-life people there at Vans for Life. And after that, I was ready to get back to the hotel to get a good night's sleep in preparation for the day of the March for Life. Now, that day, literally one email I had to send out to approve an appeal that we were sending. But there I was then getting ready for the National Prayer Service. I went early over at 6 a.m. to the Constitution Hall, worked with my staff to get everything ready, met the award winners for our essay contest and our other honored guests, pro-life leaders and clergy. We got them all together for the procession, gave them all their prayer parts, and we had a glorious 2-hour interdenominational prayer service after Father Dennis Wild said the Mass. We honored the governors of the states that defeated the abortion ballot measures, and it was just a marvelous prayer service, as it always is. When that was done, we headed over to the March for Life itself. I greeted people who were arriving for the rally. And then we had the march itself. And then as we concluded the march, we were up at the Supreme Court. I spoke and prayed for, at the gathering we had right there at the steps of the Supreme Court, for the Silent No More awareness campaign. And we had various women and men there sharing their testimonies. And I got up and I addressed the crowd, and right from there went over to our office, picked up my luggage, got an Uber, went to the airport together with Brian and another pro-life leader, member of Silent No More, and we took a flight to San Francisco that evening. Rested on the plane, but we went out to San Francisco to do it all over again the next day for the Walk for Life West Coast. Now, this is the second largest pro-life gathering every year. We arrived in San Francisco about 9:30 in the evening, went to bed. And then the next morning, we were up early and we went over to Planned Parenthood for an 8 a.m. prayer service with a group called Survivors. I preached there on the sidewalk. And then from there went over to St. Mary's Cathedral, the cathedral of the Archdiocese of San Francisco, and I greeted people as they arrived, various priests, bishops, youth groups, and pro-life activists that know me. I greeted them in the plaza for about an hour prior to the start of that Mass. Met our friend who's the communications director for the Archdiocese. It was a great time over there. And then as that Mass began, I had to get over to the Civic Center Plaza to get ready for the rally for the March for Life and the Silent No More gathering. So I greeted people there, greeted the exhibitors who were setting up their tables, and then went to the platform and led the testimony gathering for Silent No More. We had a couple of testimonies given. I preached to the crowds. And then as the crowds were gathering, they got bigger and bigger prior to the main rally for the San Francisco Walk. And I participated in that rally and then marched at the front of the walk together with Archbishop Corleone and other leaders, and Eva Montaigne, the co-founder of the march, and Dolores, the other co-founder. And we marched through the streets of San Francisco. We marched for about an hour, and then when we got to the end point, being I was in the front, I was able to position myself in such a way as to greet all the other marchers who were going by, many of whom came up to me, talked with me, and took photos with me. And by that time that was over, Brian and I had to catch an Uber to go back to our hotel. We did that, relaxed for a few minutes, and then went over to the Italian Club. We were the first to arrive for an evening leaders dinner. Archbishop Corleone was there. Bishop Joseph Coffey was there. Caught up with him. Sister Didi was there. Caught up with her. And all the organizers and staff of the Walk for Life. We had a nice dinner with them, Italian dinner. After which, I went back to my hotel and went to bed. There it was. Wonderful days, beautiful days. I saw some of you. Others of you couldn't be there, but follow this on social media. We'll be posting more videos about all this. Thank you. Thanks to all who made these events possible. What a beautiful pro-life week. What a beautiful week for America. That's what I did January 18th to the 25th, 2025. Thanks for following these updates. God bless you.
Hello, this is Father David Begany, one of the many members of Priests for Life. This organization is one of the largest and most visible pro-life ministries in the world. The Priests for Life team relies on your financial support to be able to do its work, produce its programs, and travel the world to advocate for the unborn. May I ask you to support Priests for Life generously? Go today to prolifegift.org and give us as generous a gift as you can. Thank you for your kindness, and be assured of our prayers for you every day.